Hello, my name is Turyasingura, and I am the Senior Legal Consultant at Andersen in the United Arab Emirates. Thank you for joining us and welcome to today's podcast. In this episode, we'll be exploring some of the key things that you need to know if you're considering setting up a business in the UAE. The UAE offers attractive tax incentives, a world-class infrastructure, and is strategically located between Europe, Asia, Africa, and it has so many other advantages. Business setup is a very wide topic, but I will zero down to the most important considerations for this episode. I hope that by the end of this episode, you will have understood, number one, the legal structures available for businesses in the UAE, setting up in the UAE mainland or free zones, number three, choosing a business activity and a trade name, and lastly, the costs of setup and the required documentation. The first step in setting up a business in the UAE is to determine the legal structure of your business. Each structure has its own advantages and disadvantages, so it's very important for you to choose the right structure that suits your needs. The very first structure I'll discuss is a sole proprietorship, which is the simplest form of business structure, and it is ideal for small businesses and freelancers. This can be owned and operated by one single individual who's personally responsible for all the debts and liabilities of the business. The second structure is a partnership where two or more individuals share the ownership and control of the business, and it can either be a general partnership or a limited partnership. A limited partnership is where at least one of the general partners is liable for the debts, and a general partnership, all the partners are personally liable for the debts and obligations of the business. The third and most common structure is a limited liability company, or sometimes called a free zone company depending on where it's set up. This is ideal for small and large-scale companies, and it can either be a private or public company. It can be limited by shares or by guarantee. Depending on where it is set up, the number of shareholders may be 1 or 2, and the maximum may be 50 or more. Mainland companies are governed by the UAE Commercial Companies Law, while the free zone companies are generally governed by the companies law of each free zone. Beyond these three, you can have other options, which can include a branch office, which is an extension of a local or foreign company and is subject to the laws of the UAE. You could choose to have a representative office, which is a non-trading office, but it represents the interests of a foreign company in the UAE. You could choose to enter into a joint venture, which is a business structure in which two or more companies collaborate and undertake a specific project or a business activity. This includes special purpose vehicles. You could enter into a foundation, and this can be for charity or wealth management purposes. This is ideal for high net worth individuals, for families and corporate entities that want to preserve and manage their wealth. It's a great platform for family succession and tax planning. You could have a trust, which arises out of a written instrument, usually called a trust deed, and this is for succession planning, wealth preservation, and asset management. And lastly, you could have an offshore company. These are provided for in only two jurisdictions, in Ras Al Khaimah Free Zone and Jebel Ali Free Zone, and these are set up with the intention of operating outside of the registered jurisdiction, in this case the UAE, but the ultimate ownership is in the UAE, and also these companies can own assets in these specific free zones. After you have determined your structure, you have to determine where should you set up. Step 2 is very key because you have to make a decision between the UAE mainland and the free zones. If I were to make an illustration, the mainland would mean an ocean and the free zones would mean islands. These islands have their separate laws. They exist within the ocean, which is the mainland, and that at the end of the day, each of them have their own laws, but they all live together. Now, when we discuss the mainland, the good news is that there's no longer need for a local sponsor. You can set up a business in the mainland as a foreigner and own it 100%. One of the other advantages of setting up in the mainland is that you have greater flexibility, as you can operate anywhere in that particular emirate. It could be Dubai, it could be Abu Dhabi, Fujairah, Sharjah, etc. The other advantage of setting up the business in the mainland is that it allows for greater access to the local market without many restrictions. Now, to discuss the free zones are generally designated areas for businesses. Free zones are generally specialized. You will find a specialized free zone for the internet, which would be Dubai Internet City, all IT and things like that. You will find a specialized free zone for healthcare, which would be the healthcare city. You would find Dubai Multi-Commodities Center for commodities, Jebel Ali Free Zone. You could find DIFC, which is Dubai International Financial Center, largely for finance, and Abu Dhabi Global Markets also for finance. Free zones are 100% owned. You could be a foreigner and own 100%. You could repatriate your profits 100%, and there are no restrictions on that. So the free zones also give you a different choice of law. ADGM and DIFC apply common law, and they have separate court systems. Free zones also give a simplified and streamlined process for setting up business, and these are typically faster and more straightforward, and you're not required to translate company documents into Arabic or notarize them at Dubai courts. However, business in the free zones are restricted and cannot operate anywhere. If you're to get out of the free zones, you must obtain a separate license to come to the mainland. Let's proceed to 3. Once you've determined the legal structure of your business, where you set up, the next is to choose the business activity and the trade name. The UAE mainland and free zones have a list of permitted activities. You have to choose an activity on an existing list. Usually they will allow you up to 6 or more activities on one license. You also need to choose a trade name that is not already in use and conforms to the UAE naming conventions, i.e. Religious connotations. It must not be obscene, it should not reveal the purpose of the business, and so many other considerations that are put in place. And so we have to proceed to step 4, which is the documentation. Now, where a shareholder is an individual, you have to provide a clear passport copy, a colored copy of your photo with a white background, email ID and phone number, proof of home address, CV and LinkedIn profile, the latest bank statement, your business plan. Now, I have to be clear that not all these apply to everywhere in the free zones or the mainland. This is tailored for each free zone. You must ask us, and then we'll be able to get back to you. And where the shareholder is a company, they usually request for a registration certificate or a license. Wherever the parent company is incorporated, they'll ask you for the memorandum and articles of association. All these have to be duly attested, and the process is clear. You can provide the passport copies of the proposed directors, the manager, and the ultimate beneficiary owners of the parent company. You have to provide the email ID, mobile number, proof of home address, your resume for the directors and for the managers, the business plan, and the 6 months recent back statement of the parent entity. Here are the factors that determine cost of setup in the UAE. The activity you choose and where you choose to set up. The average cost is between $7,000 and $11,000 for trading and service licenses, and this could change depending on the kind of activities that you're going to undertake. It could cost between $12,000 to $28,000 for industrial licenses, and this excludes office costs. The office cost is determined largely by where you choose to rent, and for the mainland, the office cost applies in terms of 5% of an annual rent for market fees, and this goes on to the entire cost of setup. You could also have visa requirements, and these visa requirements add up to the cost of setup. On average, one visa is for every 9 square meters of office space. In conclusion, I want to emphasize that anyone in the UAE or from any country that fulfills the requirements of setup can open a business in the UAE. The Anderson team is always available to assist you navigate the business setup terrain. Feel free to reach out to us on our communication channels available on the website, and we shall discuss all the other factors of setup, including visas, bank accounts, and so much more in the upcoming episodes. Thank you so much.